Captain Ralph here. It's been a little while, hasn't it? I've been busy. I've actually been so busy I've been thinking about being not busy. Wouldn't that be nice? Got me thinking a lot about Viking downtime. What they did, what they wouldn't do, how much of it they had. So I've been busy. The time of filming this is actually during the week after Memorial Weekend, and I worked all weekend. So I need a vacation. That's coming soon, hopefully. So I was thinking about what the Vikings and Norse society may have done in their downtime. What we know, what's speculation. From what I've read, we know they had board games, they had dice games. There's, I believe, in a few sagas talking about oar dancing. I know Torvald does a great few sagas and tales about oar dancing. For the uninitiated, that's when you either A, as the crew is rowing the ship, try to run across the oars, or they hold the oars up and you run across the oars. I've seen it done in video where the crew will hold them up and you try to run down them. That seems less dangerous than when they're trying to row, although less danger, less fun. Who knows? I believe it was also in actual sagas, not just Torvald's. From Torvald's Radio Free Valhalla. Yeah, sure, she'll bet you. Hopefully he hasn't trademarked that and he's not going to sue me. Check him out. If you don't know about Torvald, check him out. Radio Free Valhalla. So what else do we know? We know they had board games. We found them in various burials. Of course, they're in Burka. Burka. Our running joke is always Burka or it didn't happen. Noftoffel boards. Can I pronounce it more Norse? Noftoffel. It's a game. It's usually described as similar to chess, but I think any sort of strategy game on a checker-looking board is described as, well, it's chess. It's similar-ish. Takes a lot of getting your head around, I think. And it is kind of like chess, where the intelligent people would have played it. I wouldn't have played it. I'm not that intelligent. There's definitely strategy involved. It's fun if you aren't the best at it. Whereas chess, I find I enjoy chess, but there's definitely something missing because I'm not great at it. Whereas Noftoffel, it could still be fun. We found the boards and some pieces, so we know someone was playing it at some point. Would your common farmer have a set? Probably not. And I always think back to rural America, right? What do we know? We know more about rural America in the early 20th century than we do about the Norse and the Viking Age in Scandinavia. Your average farmer didn't have a chessboard. He had a checkerboard. A little different game, a little easier to pick up and play. That's not to say they didn't play a different game with a similar board and pieces. They just didn't write down the rules. And if they did, they didn't write it down on anything that survived. So we don't exactly know what they were doing. Could have been a different game, could have been a different board. But when would they have played a game? What time would they have? As young men, they were out finding adventure. It's not like your typical fantasy setting where, your adventuring party enters the local tavern. As far as we know, they didn't have the local tavern for your adventuring party to meet in. As a young man, you probably helped out on the farm. When you got old enough and you wanted to be able to afford your own farm, you went out a raiding. People like to say, yeah, you go a Viking. It's very possible. You went out raiding. What was it? The only thing Viking children or men inherited was the family sword, and the father said, go find your own damn land. There's some truth to that. So as a young man, you're off raiding, trying to get paid to go fight and earn your own money for your own land. And you have land. As anyone knows, you have land, you got to do something with it. You still have to make money with it, so you're farming all day. You're not farming, you're milking cows, you're shearing sheep, you're ranching, technically. So there's still not tons of downtime, but they would have had some downtime. But what's an easy game to carry or play when you're on the ship? When you're off to your destination? When you reach your destination? All right, well, attack at dawn. Well, what do you do till then? Dice. Seems like such a common thing. Dice. They've fallen out of favor, right? These days, card games are much more popular, easier to produce, easier to everyone knows what to do with a deck of cards. They're kind of common games we teach our children and pass on. Dice games in casinos always seem complicated, but you can still play blackjack, right? Dice games of the Viking Age is numbers. There's numbers games. There's various games you can play. Even with the six-sided dice today, we just tend not to. They're not as easy to do. It's easier to have a deck of cards in your glove box or your junk drawer than a bunch of dice, right? All your dice get lost. Unless you play D&D, then you have a whole sack full of them somewhere, right? Also got me thinking, we know they had almost like a four-sided die carved out of a long... They would have been longer, right? They're not equal-sided. They're longer. There's four sides. Those would also have been easier to produce, right? You can carve them out of a stick. You make them sort of square on four sides. You carve numbers or markings on four sides to differentiate. And they don't have to be evenly balanced. You can just kind of drop it. It's going to fall fairly randomly. It's a longer piece. It's going to fall fairly randomly. So they had access to a gambling or game device, a smaller type, easy to produce die. So, I mean, conclusively, they must have done something with these things. We found evidence of these things, right? So they must have made them, must have played something with them. Again, they just didn't write down the rules. And if they did, they're lost forever. We have no idea what they are. Stands to reason they made them and they played with them, though. What else do we know they did in their downtime? Not a whole lot. But it all kind of goes to human nature. I think, going back to chess a little bit, I think some of the oldest chessboards and documentation are from India and various parts of Asia. We have similar games, right, in Noftoffel. What's it, 12-man Morris, 9-man Morris? Another similar game. Checkers may have actually been older than we think. It's not the rural man's chess. It's a separate game, right? It's not just a knockoff version or a cheap version. It's just a whole separate game. So humans have been kind of putting together similar games and type things forever. So it stands to reason they would have come up with something. That's another easy one a lot of cultures seem to have. You know, I Spy, various word games, charades and the like. Just because we came up with it, the Vikings were so stupid they wouldn't have thought of something like that. Of course they would. They weren't distracted by television. They weren't distracted by the internet. And I'm not preaching the evils of these things. We have them. We enjoy them. I feel like a turd some days. It's beautiful outside and I want to sit around watching my TV. I don't even have cable sometimes. The allure of the couch is too much. I'm not preaching against it. They just didn't have it, right? So they had to make their own fun when they had time to make fun. You have some downtime, leisure time. You want to fill your time. There's some evidence. I know these days we like to do weird things like throw axes, right? Stands to reason they might have come up with that too. And I got thinking about it at an event we held where we have our purpose-built throwing axes and throwing knives, and we are experienced in it and want to go out to the field and throw some axes and knives. Stands to reason they probably did too. We didn't have a real target, right? We had, I think, a tube of six or I think it was a tube of six. We started throwing at that. Then what else did we find? Found some duct tape of various colors. So we just marked off some lines, called them some points, and played a game. And if we can come up with that on a random Saturday at a Viking reenactment event, there's nothing to say, and it stands to reason that they probably would have too. Would they have a purpose-built throwing knife? No. But everyone had a good knife on their belt. Despite what popular knife sellers want to tell you, you can really throw any knife. Quite a few of them had some easy to throw knives, and you take turns throwing knives. Kind of like darts. Good way to pass the time. Speaking of throwing axes, I wanted to talk a little bit about this guy. This is one actually a friend of mine left at my house. I own a few of these, but his was sitting by the door, so I wanted to show it off. This is a Cold Steel Norse Hawk. I'm not sponsored by Cold Steel or anything. It's just these things have always had a place in my heart. a local organization, the Society for Creative Anachronism. They're not local; they're worldwide, all over the place. They hold throwing weapons championships. They have an organization for it, and I actually took champion 2 times, I think. No more than 3, no less than 2. But using these axes, and it's not. I'm not saying they're the best axes in the world or anything. I took champion with them, and I like them. They're also a fair representation for a mass-produced, made-in-Taiwan axe of what I believe and what we've found to be a good fighting axe. They did have purpose-built axes, right? You had it's not like now you go to Lowe's, they got a wall of axes for everything, but you had more your farm axe, your wood-cutting axe, your limb-hewing axe. Your fighting axe might be different. Of course, if you're poor and you just have an axe, they could all kind of work, right? It's my assumption. Now, your big, heavy, tree dropping axe, you wouldn't want to take in a battle because, 1, you lose that, what are you going to drop your trees with? 2, it's heavy. You don't want to swing it all day. So a lighter axe head would have been more advantageous, right? You can swing it longer. It moves better. The quicker it is, the quicker you are, the more likely you can hit the other guy before he hits you. These are good for that. They come with a long handle. If you're going to throw them, I actually recommend taking the handle down. Real easy. Take a jigsaw to it, whatever you got. You want to shorten it for throwing. When you're throwing an axe, you're not going for distance. You're generally 10 to 20 feet away. These things, I could hook this a good ways, which works out for later period Scottish. And I've never confirmed this. I believe some drunken Scotsman told me around the fire that's how they divvied up land, or used to divvy up land. I know in Iceland, in Norse Settlement Age Iceland, it was you got as much land as far as you could carry a lit candle before it goes out. Is the general consensus of how they divvied up Iceland. Had a drunk Scotsman telling me it was how far you could throw an axe. That was the end of your property line. I don't know if that's a long way. Especially not for farming, right? So I don't know if I believe that. Sounds good, though, doesn't it? You could probably huck this a good ways. But these are decent axes. Longer like this is more of a fighting axe. And that's as I continuously swing it around, it's because, you just want to hit someone with it. But not a giant axe head like they have in movies and TV shows. Short enough to hook shields, hook a shield, not super bearded, right? Those would have been used for something a little different, but good for hooking a shield. You still got the point up here, hook a shield, jab it into them, hook a shield, not super long beard so you can still disengage and keep fighting. So, if you hook the shield of a guy too big, he's just going to yank your axe away. You got to be able to disengage a little bit from it. So, I like these all-purpose. You used to get them for $20. I doubt they still are, but if you're in the market for your first axe, potentially your last axe, I do recommend Cold Steel Norse Hawks. They're good for throwing, good for a lot of things. They actually have a set screw in the back. Take that out, pound the handle down because they're always loose, right? You can either spend all day trying to tighten that set screw. Take it out, pound the handle down, or replace the handle altogether for something that's a snug, tight fit, especially if you're going into combat. For Lettier practice, or Lettier fighting, light fighting, I believe what do they call it? I mentioned it before, not Jarl, what do they call that? It'll come to me. Jarl fighting, Earl fighting, Herseer fighting. Oh, it'll come to me sometime. Light fighting, Western style. If you take the edge off, they come semi-sharp. Good for throwing, not bad for throwing, I should say. Take that down a little bit. You got a good light fighting axe. Again, Walrus left it here. I want to ramble about it a little bit because I didn't have much else interesting to talk about. Again, working a lot. Need some time off. Wanted to ramble at you lovely people for a little while. That's all I got. That's all I wanted to talk about. Downtime. As always, prove me wrong. Go look up facts. Figure out what I got wrong. Tell me about it in the comments. I'll do some more research to try to figure it out. I propose the ideas and the thoughts. Hopefully you'll learn something, and hopefully you teach me something too. So until next time, skål. Chieftain out.